The humble horror game hiding place. A staple of horror games, indie and AAA, once a rarity, but had a sharp rise in appearances ever since the release of Outlast. Nowadays, it's widely seen as just another horror mechanic. Some might even call it lazy, which is fair, but there's something about the mechanic, at least to me, that I find uniquely scary. When I talk about hiding spots in horror games, I mean those spots where you interact with an object, and your character shoves themselves in there to hide from some monster or other. Typically, they're a locker, a barrel, under a bed, a closet, anything really. The thing they all have in common is that you're hiding from a monster, and usually the monsters get to grab you if they spot you heading inside. There are some exceptions to this, some more obvious than others. The reason I'm making a video about something so common in horror games is because of a recent experience that I've had with the game Elevated Dread. I came into contact with this game while I was surfing Itchio, looking for any spooky games to play because I really wanted to binge them while I was streaming in a Discord voice chat, while I learned about how OBS worked. There, I played a whole lot of games. Some were spooky, others silly, and some were just really cool. But the one that actually impacted me really badly was Elevated Dread. At first glance, you might think that this game is just a really simple one, dime a dozen really in the horror sphere, and you might even be right, but do consider that I myself am someone who's only really up until recently exclusively experienced horror media through proxies. That meaning YouTuber playthroughs with the jumpscare timestamps in mind, wiki pages that I read up on because I found the story and concepts fascinating, story explained videos, and of course, analysis videos, be it about game design or story. But by removing all those proxies and choosing to go in blind by myself for the first time, I've just sat down and immersed myself and went to town on a horror game, and that went about as well as you'd expect.
Get back in the closet! No, okay. No, okay. No, I don't want to do that. No.
There's something about horror media that allows it to make a sniveling mess out of someone like myself, someone that's more familiar with the tricks and tropes of the genre, and it's something that Elevated Dread excels in. The game, put simply, is a masterclass in atmosphere. Atmosphere is everything to a horror game, or any media in general. It's the thing that elevates something from good to great. Getting a player, viewer, consumer, whatever, invested in a piece of media, especially if it's horror, demands some form of immersion building, that feeling like you're actually in the whatever wild scenario that the creator is presenting to you. The visuals are absolutely important, yes, but what is absolutely paramount is the sound design. The main way that people engage with their surroundings is typically with their eyes, but to cover the places that you can't see, you focus with your ears. It's a survival mechanism. Listening lets you hear the snapping of a twig behind you late at night on a walk home, the shuffling in the halls where nobody should be, and the rap-tap-tapping of a branch on a window. When you listen, especially if those in charge of the audio does their job well, the immersion of the media spikes, because more than one of your senses are being actively engaged by the thing that you're consuming in a way consistent with what's going on in that media. A very prominent example that's been used to prank people for quite a while is including that audio clip of someone knocking on a door that's been audio balanced to sound like it's knocking in real life. See? That wasn't me in the video, by the way. That's the man in your walls taunting you because he doesn't have to pay you rent. I suggest retaliating by purchasing a bag of termite eggs and placing them in the nearest hole in your wall. Make sure to let him know who to pay when the screaming stops. When you only have your ears, your mind tends to race, coming up with the most extreme conclusions of what that could be it a burglar or a monster, even when that thing was just something mundane. This is what enables video games like Elevated Dread, Lethal Company, and others. Even when the actual visual assets are simple or even silly, the audio completely sells it. The most exaggerated example of this that I know of is the game Nighttime Visitor. Spoiler warning for this game, by the way. Links to Nighttime Visitor and Elevated Dread will be in the description if you're interested. The game's premise is that you're someone working at an office late at night, and it's time for you to clock out. However, when you're about to exit the building, you get called by Alex.
Hey man, this is Alex. Heard you're working late tonight. I was just calling to say that I'm coming to get ya.
The actual initial presentation is pretty goofy, with the over-exaggerated clown-like laughing, but it's the atmosphere that this game presents you with that takes the cake here. The main mechanic that this game has is your phone. The game traps you in a maze with this killer that you can't immediately see. However, it gets interesting during your time in this maze of an office. Alex calls you again and again, and when you answer, you're only met with heavy breathing. This already is immensely unsettling. A killer just deciding to call you, just to breathe in your ear and possibly throw you off. It's creepy enough. Although, the thing that this game doesn't explicitly tell you here is that Alex is actually calling you so that he can hear where you are from the sound of your ringtone, as well as the sound that he makes from your phone when you pick it up. At first, you might be confused as to why you're getting calls, but if you're perceptive enough to get this, you'll be unnerved even more, with the knowledge that every ring of that phone is just bringing you closer and closer to death by deranged killer. The real meat of the audio-driven tension that game provides is from when you discover that you have the option to call Alex instead, where you get to hear his position on the map from the sounds that his phone makes when you ring it. He even picks up after a little bit, breathing heavily into the phone just like he would if he were calling you. This turns his own weapon against him, but it also doubles as even more tension building, as you can feel safe while you're far away from him, that ringing so far echoing in the distance, but it makes it even more nerve-wracking when you can hear it just around the corner, getting closer and closer. Your mind fills in the blanks that Alex's lack of physical appearance gives, morphing him into this unknown monster or beast, a psycho killer wielding a knife coated in blood, a many-mod beast mimicking human tongue, all sorts of monstrous things. However, when you actually get to meet your monster, you're met with this.
Ooh, that's... Hi. What are you? No, come near me! Ah! I got a gun! Ah! He is the size of Chucky.
That's right. The entire time, you were terrified of a 5-second doodle of a borderline stick figure on a phone. Not even a 3D model, it's a looped GIF attached to an AI that tracks your player by sound. And that is what I mean by atmosphere selling horror. Sure, the tension is completely broken by that incredibly silly monster, but the build-up and the tension is there. Some people might even be viscerally terrified of this doodle just because of the sheer amount of dread and tension that's been building up the whole game. Hiding places in horror games get to play with this, as the hiding mechanic is where the audio design can really shine if the developer goes in that direction, as hiding places very often obscure the player's line of sight, often getting glimpses of the monster, if even that if the player decides to hide there. In my own case, I have the unfortunate habit of hiding in a spot and staying hidden forever, unable to progress if given the opportunity. This is even when I know that nothing is there. My overactive imagination would just run wild with the given audio, needing extremes in order to even begin to approach having enough confidence to continue playing.
I don't want to play the video game. I don't want to play the video game. Who says am I contractually obligated to play the video game? I don't want to play the video game. Who says I have to play the video game? I'm being so methodical about this. I don't want to play the video game. So, therefore, I shouldn't play the video game. It's basic logic. It's basic fucking logic. I don't have to play the video game, and then I can play something else, like Ultrakill. That's my comfort video game, because I can kill lots of shit and not have to worry about some fucking demon baby coming onto the ceiling, and I have to be cats and shit, and not having to deal with all of this garbage. Okay? I'm cracked.
Yeah, it's not pretty. But it is a clear example of what it's like when audio is done well, even if I'm someone that does get scared real easy. The way that games promote tension becomes very in tune with the base mechanics of those games, a very prominent example being press shift to run, or press E to hide. It's very common for horror games to introduce these text prompts right when a threat emerges, typically the main monster of the game, or a lesser enemy to help ease the player into the gameplay loop. While it is cliché, it does its job well, especially if the creator/developer knows how to play with these pre-existing expectations or clichés in interesting ways, with little choices in how they handle the moments right after the prompt appears. You could go the route of immediately creating a confrontation with the monster for some immediate danger to hook the player, or you could simply do nothing. I've seen this affect many Let's Players in the past. The prompts themselves often get people primed for something to go wrong, but when it doesn't, that initial sense of suspicion and dread doesn't go away. That's because the game is still playing with expectations, a little sort of Damocles hanging over the player's head. You never know exactly when you're going to have a confrontation. You just know that at some point, at any point, it is going to happen. This is what brings me back to Elevated Dread. ED is what I believe to be an excellent piece of atmosphere and playing with expectations. In total length, Elevated Dread is typically about 20 minutes to half an hour long in terms of total playtime. That is if you're not me. But what's so astounding about Elevated Dread is that it's not great because of the monster, because even though it is there, and it is very scary, what sells the horror and the paranoia of this game is the audio design, the atmosphere, and the subtle hints that something is going to go wrong. It's the employment of an oppressively quiet initial stage followed by a slowly building, escalating terror, accompanied by this constant threat of something going wrong. You're almost begging for a chase sequence or something to help break up that tension, but it never comes. That is, until it does.
Oh my god!
Now, I won't spoil the whole experience. This is one that's best experienced on your own. Or if you're stubborn, then just watch the Markiplier video or some other Let's Players playthrough of it. But Elevated Dread is best played on your own if you're into being scared, but it's understandable if you don't. Trust me, I wouldn't do so again if I had any choice in the matter. But this is one of the best horror games I've experienced in the short little stint I've had with them so far. A short little bite-sized fright that can play into the time that it takes you to do your morning routine. So, I would heavily recommend checking it out. I just wanted to get this little ramble out there. But thank you all for watching this far into the video. And once again, stay safe and good night.